And welcome back to Stories from the River. This is your host, Charlie Malouf. Welcome to episode 357. We are here in studio with Lee Vang, Senior Business Intelligence Developer. We're going to talk all about business intelligence, what we call around here, BI. Let's go.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Welcome to the pod. Welcome back to Stories from the River.
Thank you, absolutely. I'm glad to be here and have a conversation with you about BI, so I'm excited about it.
You love BI, you love data.
I do. Data was definitely, got out of school. I probably would say it was one that I didn't know was going to be my, I guess, future love. Was exploring other aspects of IT, and I think I started my internship and data started talking to me, and I became heavy into that world. And yeah, I just spent the last good 20 years of just immersing myself in terms of what data really is and where the value of it brings. So.
I love that. I love that. Listen, so, okay, let's go back a little bit, get some of your background.
Yep.
Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Born in Fresno, California. Raised here out in Morganton, North Carolina. So it's about an hour and a half away from here. Grew up, love the culture there. Definitely got a little country in me. So sometimes it might come out, sometimes it may not.
Wait, you love the culture in Morganton?
I love the culture in Morganton.
Okay,
yeah,
not Fresno.
Fresno was a different. I loved it, but in a different ways. So,
okay.
so raised up in high school there, and then essentially mother had an injury, so then we moved to California, that's where my brother then lived at. So I finished up my high school and college years over there. And then essentially, I always say California was the fast life. And so I realized as I got older, that was a little bit too extreme. And I said, I knew one place that was kind of more, a slower pace. And so Charlotte, North Carolina came to be the destination. Here I am now.
I love it. And where'd you go to college?
Hill College.
Hill College?
Yeah.
And what was your major?
Information technology.
Okay, love that.
Yeah.
I love how you talk about data. Well, like why do you like data? Did you like numbers growing up, stats? Like, what do you love about data?
So definitely math was my strongest suit for sure. I would say at that time I didn't know what data had correlation to math, and so to your point, when I kind of got exposed into my internship, where the internship was a software based company, and so they were kind of like, hey, we need somebody to figure out some of these stuff, and here's some kind of like algebra is like A plus B equals C. It's like, it's like these syntax of things, and you're like, equals this, and you're like, okay, so this is like a game. All right, so let me just try to figure this out. And so I was during my internship, as I was kind of going through a series of kind of learning the verbiage of what data and kind of what is the proper term for things, and so I just kind of grew more and more in depth, grew more and more in love with it, and then essentially it was just one of those things where I was just like, I'm all in now. I'm all in. I'm in it now. So yeah.
Well, I love stats. I mean, I grew up like playing baseball, and I used to read the box scores every morning back when you would get into the newspapers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we share a love for data and numbers.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about when you joined the River, which was around 2015.
2015, right? Yeah.
Did Kevin Lauterbach?
Lauterbach, yeah.
He hired you?
Yeah, he hired me, and then there was I forget the lady's name. She was what I was in the current role. Bretta, or something like that. And so again, I always look at it as it was a funny story, because so I got hired, but then my first day, she had already quit. And so then I was like, okay, so then I got to figure out how does data even work around here in Broad River. And then 3 days later, then Kevin says, hey, I'm also leaving. So I'm like, so I really don't know where how much I understand all this stuff. So I don't understand the infrastructure. I was like, all right, so it was a cool, one of those things for me as that, to me, I would say it was a pivotal moment that I didn't realize actually played an important part to where I'm at today. Because it was one of those things where like you're almost like, and I say this to my team a lot, where I'm just like, I'll throw you in the wood or I'll throw you in the water, and you're either gonna sink or swim.
Yeah.
And so because to me it was one of those things that I learned that at the end of the day, what made you really, or what made me kind of more motivated and more like, hey, like you got to be invested, was those moments, because there was no one there to help you. It was you got to figure this stuff out. Like no one knows SQL, no one knows like these terminologies that they need to make these magic, or as folks would say, a magic wand happen. And so for me, it was just one of those things where I was just like, heck yeah, like this is scary, but. And that you the term ride or die, and then that this is what
that's your term. That's your term. I'm gonna get to that. Listen, we didn't know how much grit you had. We needed it. Now we won't just throw them into the water and let them sink. We'll give them a lifeboat,
we'll give them,
a raft, or some tools and stuff to stay afloat.
Oh yeah.
But we were sinking when you joined us.
Yeah.
I don't mind saying this is part of the 2015 story, and it's always good to be reminded. Like, okay. One person was leaving, then the guy who hired you, he said, and I'm leaving. And so then it was you and Harold.
Right.
And y'all, I think as you told the story, y'all were looking around like.
We got to get things going here. It's just either if we make it to the top, then we make it to the top. If it sinks and, the ship wrecks, we did everything we can to make it happen. And so to that point, having that conversation with Harold and again, to me, it was just, kind of just those couple experiences in terms of understanding like, okay, something was up, but at the same time, again, it was also my mentality was just like, look, like I talked to Harold's giving me a vibe that says, look, like we're just gonna tackle this and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna take it and ride and die there. So for me, I was like, I'm all in. Then let's make it happen. Let's see where we go with this, because I mean, I'm not one to be shy about it, but I also am one that says like it's a good challenge, because it was a good test for me, essentially.
Well, and this is like the back half of 2015.
Correct.
Because you had just started, Harold then had just started, and we had no BI department, no reports.
Correct.
Let me paint the picture for our audience. We talked about the 2015, the wheels had come off the bus. I like to say we had broken all of our bones, and it was the best thing that had ever happened to us. It could have not been.
No, I think it was.
It could have not been had we not had people like you.
Yeah.
Or not had you specifically.
Yeah.
But it was. I remember the first time you told me that story. It was pretty emotional for me, because I knew all the peripheral things around what we were going through.
Yeah.
And we were sinking. We were taking on water, and I just knew. I didn't know how much you had that ride or die mentality. There was a few folks who were like, you felt were in the foxhole with you at that time. And so to come to hear it from your perspective and to know that you were in the foxhole with us, helping us get out and escape and making us so much better. So we had just converted to a new ERP system, and it had not gone well in the first 6 months. We had not handled it well in the first 6 months of 2015. And really, it's like flying the plane in the dark without any of your tools or visibility, riding a bike in the dark or without any navigation. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know how to count inventory. We didn't know anything that was going on. And no one else knew it either, right? It was amazing that we got product delivered.
Yeah.
So basically you rebuilt or built this whole BI platform from the ground floor up.
Yeah.
And we started kind of playing this whole great game of business and having this transparency. I just remember by the time we launched some of these BI tools in February of 2016, where we started doing like the HFC daily, weekly, monthly, and the HFC KPI report, and giving people access to the tools. Like, here you go, you can run the reports.
Yeah.
Like and we'd had all these type of reports on our previous system that kind of homemade, maybe not to this degree, but when we started to kind of sit down with you and say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, here's what we're trying to achieve. It's one of the pillars that helped us fly the plane, fly it really, really well, sync up from retail to operations to supply chain to the finance team for accounting and proper budgeting.
Yeah. That
really, I mean, you if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there, right?
Yeah, true.
Nobody ever drifts to a destination they would have chosen. So we were no longer drifting. We were plugging in our GPS coordinates and we're navigating clearly. And that's really because of the reports that you built from day one. And so how did you go about it? Like this whole abstract morass, I'm in the dark, there's nothing here. And like, were you just kind of like listening, what do we need? And like, cause now, and then fast forward to today, hundreds of reports.
Yeah.
And people are coming at you all the time, and you've got a whole team
Right.
of people. And so we got literally hundreds of reports
Yeah.
that are pretty myopic and very specific for a specific use case.
Yep.
And all these systems, all roads lead back to you and to your team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So get us like close to present day by taking you from your perspective.
Yeah.
How do we get here?
Yeah, so I think to me, kind of to your point, so my journey essentially, I'll say in the first 5 years was more listening and observing, because I think the one thing that I've always that I've kind of picked up was everyone was moving at their own speed, right? And it was one of the things where if I even had a talk with Shuri, if I had a talk with somebody else, it was just like, it was more in the moment, but not really kind of like settled thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the one thing for me was, you know what? Hey, let everyone kind of do their own course. I'm here for one reason, and the one reason is to get data to understand how this is going to help the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I ended up doing for I want to say about a good 7 months, what it looked like, I think for me, it was laying low, because I think at that time, to your point, our two main reports was HFC KPI and DW, and then we had already built. And I laugh now because at that time we only had maybe, I don't know, 7 KPIs at that point, and so now we're like 50 plus on that report. But to me, it's kind of was just, hey, this is enough for them to keep afloat,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna go focus on other things, because my thing was, I always was how do I get everything to talk to each other? And that was the one thing that I never really got confirmation in terms of, like, even if I talked to stores, it was kind of like, hey, yeah, there's a possibility of this, but then it was like, I'm not looking for possibilities. I'm looking for definitive. Definitive is what I'm shooting for. So at that point, then I started, well, then we're going to start building more custom tables, and we're going to build, because secret sauce, it was something that wasn't just something natively you can just capture in stores. You had to. For my part of it, it was like, okay, we need to figure out how we're going to capture that.
Should we explain what secret sauce is?
Sure.
So we don't take the canned reports from Storis, and we don't even take like canned margin. Storis is our ERP system, and you reporting all this into our own data warehouse,
Yeah.
which I had to learn what that meant. And then you're kind of doing Power BI reports from there.
Yeah.
But our secret sauce is
basically gross profit after finance fee plus dash percentage.
Yeah, so it's literally all the money that an HFC, a home furnishings consultant, can influence at the point of sale.
Correct.
And because they can influence, what we sell it for, how the customer pays for it, and whether or not we get delivery, and if we discount the delivery.
Yep.
And then, by the way, how they pay for it, what type of plan, how much down payment they get.
Yeah.
So you're building all these custom tables to kind of make it all mismatched. But I was like, Lee, this is how we want it to work. And you're like, okay, I got you.
Gotcha.
It's just like a beautiful mind.
Yeah.
It is just, and then it works. And then and Lee, and let everyone see it.
Yeah.
So the HFCs can see their own scorecard too, and it worked beautifully.
Yeah.
And so then everyone was on the same page.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that was, and I would say these are the nights where I would spend long days and nights, because the problem for me was always, well, the data has to be accurate. I don't like directional. Directional has never been the name of the game for me. I've always been more like, it has to be definitive, because data is what, data can be anything how someone takes it.
Yeah.
But when you can build something that says this is definitive, no matter how you look at it, that it will never change.
We spend a lot of time normalizing data.
Yeah.
Such that we've kind of adopted this phrase, domestic replacement cost.
Yeah.
So that we can have a level playing field for how products are going to be costed, and they don't have variable costs.
Right.
Like, it's too hard to manage. We want to make things simple, so we spend a lot of time thinking through how to make it simple, like the costing or the custom tables.
Yeah.
So that it can all flow through nice, even, and neat, and
correct,
and pure, if you will.
Yeah, no, and to your point, so as kind of years later, after the 5th year, then the introduction of cubes came out, and then there was more of the idea of now folks were aware of, like, hey, like, can we get this? And at that point, I have already built up enough insight in terms of stores, how they structure things, how things can communicate, and then to me, I think that after year 5 was when things really started wrapping up in terms of like report requests. Because then it was, hey, I'm looking for something inventory. Can you do that? Yeah, absolutely. Boom. How fast can you turn that around? Give me a day. Then boom, here you go. And so I think at that point, I felt like that's when things really started picking up with the BI development or the BI team itself, and that folks were like, okay, like we can get more, like we can really start digging in deeper into things that that we may not have awareness of. And then I think that to me, I think given to where today's at now, where it's just like now data is one of our fundamentals. I feel like at this point with the Broad River company, because it's what's drive us in terms of making really strong, impactful decisions now.
Yeah, I mean, it's even like if you think about some parallels, inventory, it's got to be you got to have integrity in your inventory, right? For it to be reliable. Your financials, you got to have integrity in the financials so that they're reliable. Our data, I get if something gets slightly off, it really bothers me. But we want integrity, and I know it bothers you too, because we want. If there's integrity in the data and the data that we're putting forth, it gives us great confidence to kind of have that be foundational and to rely on it.
Yeah.
And it amazes me how many different people, departments, programs, and systems that you're now overseeing and responsible for. It could be a credit card terminal. It could be a third-party program that the people department's deploying, or that the finance department's deploying, or that the supply chain department or home delivery. I mean. When you think about all the different tools or APIs, marketing could be sending data to Facebook or Google, anonymized data, or to LS Direct, or to Paycom. So because we do automated commission reports.
Yep.
And things of that nature. Lee, we wanted to pay it. We come up with all kind of crazy categories, and how can we pay it based off of the categories that they write, and then coming up with their own delivery tables, and things of that nature. So there's a lot. It's a lot.
There is, and I think in today's world, being very centralized in the data world, it now becomes more. And I always say that in the sense of 10 years ago, storage was really kind of all you had to worry about, like reporting. The concept of an ERP was very true to that term, where I think now in today's world, we can call it an ERP, but there's always going to be a bunch of third party that's going to always want to tap into the system. But but each of their own system has additional information that isn't just, that's exclusively to their platform. And so in that regards, it kind of becomes now the name of the game is not so much how much data can you pull. Now it becomes how do you get data to really talk to other data now.
That's right.
Because at this point, and a good example, working with some of the departments, it's just one of those things where it's like, there's so much things that it almost becomes, when you're working with data, there's a lot of pre-stage planning that has to occur. Where I feel like in the past, it used to just be more like you asked for the request and then somehow things are already self-connected.
So how many different applications or programs are you like overseeing or plugging in? I mean, it's a lot.
I want to say at least 10.
I would have gone higher than that.
It might be higher, but it's just the top of my head right now, 10 is what rings the bell. So
and like what advice would you give someone to, like, when people give you like a report request, do you say, well, hey, have you thought of a different way? Do you try to understand what they're trying to go for to come up with the best way to go at the report? And do you sometimes influence them a different direction based off what they're discovering, what their need is?
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that. So I think to me in the past, I've kind of let my team members try to take that direction. And so recently I've kind of gotten back in the front line and kind of, okay, hey, let's kind of reestablish things here. And so to your point, when things are asked or being requested, those are typically the things that I ask. I'm like, well, you're going to tell me something, but I'm going to repeat it. But if it makes sense to you for what I said, how I'm going to say it, then cool. Then I'm interpreting it the same. But if you're giving me a word lick or whatever, like I kind of come in the approach of more of in the sense of, what you're asking for, you have to really understand what you're asking for, because what I'm going to come back to you and say, okay, if you need something from an HFC standpoint, okay, well, how do you define an HFC? Because I think for me, sometimes I feel like being in the business for so long, yes, like it's almost kind of like, well, you know what it is. And yes, I do know what it is. I agree. But does everybody else know that? And that to me is kind of where I think in today's world I've kind of gotten to where the idea is not about BI being the intelligence. The idea is really about the company itself being business intelligent. Because for me, what good is it if just me and my team being the intelligence of decision making or being the driving force to help making decisions? I mean, when we can just all empower everybody together and make that decision either collectively or respectively, however the way the situation is. And so to your point, yeah, like it definitely, I will have a series of questionnaires, and sometimes I will say that sometimes they're aggressive, because I think part of me is also, I kind of look at it as the, this sounds funny, but sometimes it's sometimes folks are like, I'm at the same level you're at, and I'm like, fine, then I'm going to test you. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. If you can answer those, then great. Then I know that we can speak at the same level. And then if you're giving me puzzle look, then I'm also going to be bringing you back down to earth and says, hey, like I appreciate you trying to help me, but this is what we're probably this is where the expectation really needs to be at, and then we'll build up on top of that part of it there. So
there's so many different directions I want to go here. Do you have any kind of favorite reports, or what are some of the longest reports that are out there, like that you might surprise people with the code behind the
longest report? Definitely the truth report. The truth report, from a code standpoint, we're almost about 11,000 lines.
Yeah, the Truth Report is our report that runs every Tuesday morning, because we have Truth Tuesday, and we like to look at things in a pretty good cadence, a consistent cadence. And so our fiscal weeks, and months, and quarters, and years always end on Monday, so it's Tuesday through Monday.
Yeah.
And so all the retail and operational KPIs on each, and so all those kind of high-level KPIs come out Tuesday morning around 4 a.m. or so.
Yeah.
And have for like 10 years now.
It has for 10 years, yeah. Then I would say, for me, I think it's surprisingly impressive that in my world, I get it takes about 15 minutes to run. But again, you're in the idea of 11,000 lines of codes. That's a lot. And these aren't just like simple like metrics. These are very complex that we're trying to pull and trying to consolidate them all together as one. And so in that regards, I think that's probably for me the most interesting, and probably I would say probably one of the more prouder ones that's been built.
Are you pulling from libraries? Are you handwriting? Did you originally write those 11,000 lines of code?
So I originally wrote 8,000, and then since I handed over to my team, then it's been accumulating to 11,000 at this point. So
I got you. Now, how do you see AI influencing what you guys do in terms of report writing?
So AI is I think to me it's kind of one of those things for me that when it first came out, again the topic of agentic AI was just the term AI was being used rapidly. My focus specifically was agentic AI, and so I think for me, when that term was getting used everywhere, and every companies were trying to be first and trying to establish that technology, I think for me I was very cautious of like, let's let it mature a couple years and then kind of see how things are at. So I say that in the sense of in where we're at now, I think I've seen enough where the agentic AI has matured in terms of companies who've continued to use it and really make great use case out of it, has already set an establishment in terms of kind of what it can do. And so for me, and from a writing standpoint, it takes away the writing of the code, honestly, because now how I look at BI now is it's not so much about writing reports. It's just more now feeding data to a large language model, and that's kind of what we call it on the behind the scenes there, as the equivalent as the agentic AI. And so that's kind of been the thing for me, the benefits of it, because now, the idea of having a data scientist or all these other what would be positions that in past days we would be looking for, it eliminates that in the regards of having the human aspect of the emotions or whatever, where it's just this is an agentic AI, it's always going to factor whatever it's going to think it's best based off of what data is available. And so
And now we have to come up with like ideas to like come up with new prompts. Like what should I be thinking about for prompts that
True.
I've never thought of before
Yeah.
if I have this proliferation of reports that might be available to me.
Correct.
Is this where, I don't know if you're ready to talk about like ThoughtSpot or some of these type new
Yeah,
tools?
we can talk some of that. So definitely so ThoughtSpot is one of the platforms we've been exploring, and I think recently we just had another demo with them just to kind of do some follow-up questions. So one of the things that what helped me kind of understand this is agentic AI in terms of there is a legitimate next level to what in today's world what we're doing with Power BI is because so they had built some so there's dashboards that they have, and so then you can drill down. So you can right click and then you click on the drill down, but it gives you all the options of what you can drill down to. Where in today's, or I guess I would say today's world, but in the reporting world, you had to already predefine like, okay, I want to go from the store, I want to go from this level. You had to set your hierarchy cadence. And so to be able to see that ThoughtSpot in terms of how agentic AI works, at least from a reporting standpoint, where it's like it's already doing the thinking for you. You just got to tell it what you're really interested in, and it will just kind of cater to you in that regards.
Well, we have so much data.
Yeah.
And so a large language model can really like help us go into the long tail and the crevices of data that we never would have thought about.
Yeah.
To your point, the integrity of the data is important.
Yep.
And you got to protect that. And how do you do that? How do you make sure that you take that fortress security mindset that we have like around our network or our infrastructure and wrap that around our data?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of that kind of comes into collaborating for sure with the security team and just making sure, hey, what is acceptable for what I need to do to make sure my data is in a secure environment, right? So once we have that, then I kind of look at it from a different angle, because in my world, it's fortifying data internally and externally, because again, I look at it in I guess in modern day world, you may have internal spies or you may have external spies, but you got to be able to understand, but you got to be able to account to both sides of it. And so for me, I look at it as fortifying, data as the sense of fortifying those that should only know those data and whatever that means. And so and that might just mean, in tasks where we're like, hey, yeah, to your point, you mentioned, hey, let's share GPFF to everybody. Let's let them have insight. Well, okay, but do we want to give them the whole 10 years worth, or do we want to just give them maybe just the fiscal year? Because if you expose that and says, no, let's just give them the whole 10 years, well, you're exposing data. And that's from a health standpoint, from a data standpoint, that's a risk, because then you don't know what else that may be used for. And so in that regards, for me, I look at it from a different angle in terms of fortifying.
And you're thinking of it from a protecting from the data that doesn't go out too far. And I was also talking about just making sure that the data is whole coming in, garbage in, garbage out, but making sure that we're getting good data in, like that the formulas coming in from Shopper Track are accurate, or that we don't miss a count. And if we do, how do we recover from things like that so that we don't break a connection on EDI or go into one of our API partners who you're sending data to.
Yeah, and to your point, I think that's one thing definitely for me that becomes more apparent. Is that in the data world, we need to be talking to those vendors' data specialists, because to your point, it is true. Like just in general, when you work with and get a new software, us as end users, we don't really know what's good data, what's bad data. We just said, look, we got something, we can take this and we'll interpret it. But then our goal is to go to them and says, hey, what we have here, does this even make any sense if what we're trying to do with X, Y, and Z here?
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the part where I think that becomes more crucial, because if we can have a good collaboration with those partners, then definitely we eliminate garbage in, garbage out. It becomes treasure in, treasure out is how I look at it. So,
I like that. Treasure in, treasure out.
Yeah.
Tito.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Tito. Yeah.
Like Tito Otero.
Yeah.
I think it's, I think one of the things that I'm hearing from you is you're asking the next question.
Yeah.
You're not just taking what someone wants. You're asking the next question, like, how will it be used? What will it be used for?
Right.
What are we getting, and what do we need to do with it? And so, I think it's also really important. Like, the data that we have now, the thing about business intelligence to make it come alive is really like, what is the insight that we're going to drive from it?
Yeah.
What are we going to do with this data? And how will it make us like a learning organization and a more intelligent organization?
Right.
Because there's a saying that goes, don't failure is nothing more than data.
Yeah.
Right? Because we can learn from it. And any kind of yesterday's sales, their data. There's a lot of data there that went from yesterday's sales. How will we learn from it? How can we pinpoint where we either won or didn't win or succeeded or didn't succeed?
Yeah.
And then what do we need to coach, train, and get better at? So when you think about like the future of where all of this is going, right? So you've been in this data world at the river here. I mean, you could probably run the company from a BI perspective. You know where we're going. You know the airspeed and the longitude, latitude, and the coordinates.
Yeah.
So you can help us get from A to B.
Yeah.
But from a data perspective, we've made data come alive in this conversation. Where's it going next? Where do we go from here?
It's an interesting one because I think about this quite a bit, and it's not so much what I guess it's to me it's as the individual, where do they want the data to go? Mm-hmm. Because to your point, I think how I look at it is from my view, I see it as I want more layers of AI on top of it, right? Mm-hmm. But I also know that when AI first came out, data was the first subject focus area that everyone tackled. So in that sense, in terms of what's next on the layer on top of data, it may take a couple more years until something comes out that evolves where the data lives under. Mm-hmm. So then to me, it becomes then at that point, well then from an individual standpoint, what did they want out of the data? Because some may say, well, I want this data to be a coaching opportunity. Mm-hmm. Some says, well, I may be able to look at this and try to be making more business impactful decisions and stuff like that. And so to me, I think it's almost creating a universal, how do I want to say it? It's like a universal data with the intent of it being openness to adjust to what the end users may want to interpret.
And everyone becomes an end user in the organization. If you put an AI layer on top and you give folks the access to run their data, to run their business, let's just say every commissioned HFC in our company, well, they're running their book of business, right? And so now we have to become prompt partners and thought partners for how to prompt. Well, I might say, well, hey, even while I'm in the sale, what should I be suggesting next?
True.
Based off what I have in the cart, or based off the room that they're looking to fill. What have I not suggested for items to add?
Right.
Or based off of my open book of customers that I sold to in the last 120 days, who told me that they were still working on a next room that I need to call and invite to this private event that we have?
Right.
And what should I offer them as their next project? So it can do a lot of that thinking for you, but you have to think about what should I be asking it.
Correct. And I think that's where I think for me is because it's the fun challenge behind it. Because I think to me, sometimes we ask the repeated questions, with the word, we're like, okay, it's almost like we have a checklist and we're like, okay, these are the things we always want to do. But I'll use ThoughtSpot as the example here, where ThoughtSpot's going to help kind of expand that, because it will know you're always going to ask a repetitive question, but it's also going to add a little wrinkle and says, oh, by the way, did you realize X, Y, and Z, or did you realize there's a correlation from here to here? And so for me, I think I look at it. I always say a great use case is with merchandising, right? Because I think the one thing for me, I look at it is they're always making decisions. They're always trying to figure out, hey, like where can we maximize opportunity and stuff like that. So the one thing that comes to my mind immediately are space allocated for items, right? And so having the data that says, hey, we are allocating 1,500 square foot for a sleep room gallery or whatever. We can, using that layer of AI and says, hey, what should we be putting around the sleep gallery? What should we do? Mix of colors? Should we do, having all, if we have all the information, then it can be able to give you that insight and says, hey, yeah, maybe we should all put for this particular store, a lot of folks are buying a lot of neutral colors. So maybe let's go with some setup that are kind of more, neutral type items to keep the attraction going there in some sort. So I think that to me where it's kind of that's what I'm hoping for the next step, where it's getting folks to become more of the looking at it from a different lens, or starting to allow them to look at it through different lenses. Because I think to me, working with ThoughtSpot, just the platform itself, I kind of started with the thought of, if I was a new GM, what do I need to know, right? And so it was giving me a series of feedback and information. It was telling me, like I used Pineville as an example, and it was like, it was one of our top performers, and this, these were the metrics that it was strong in. And so I was like, okay, like that's interesting. I didn't, some of the stuff I did wasn't aware of. And so then it was like, hey, by the way, did you know that, if you can get if you can get 5 more GRL, you're bringing an opportunity of an additional $900 if you can get them to now become a customer. So by looking at transactions at that point, and so it was being able to add in all these correlations where I'm like, man, I tell you, if I was a GM, I'd probably been like, I mean, if I should know that, I should have known that. But if I'm a new GM and just trying to understand that world, man, this is amazing insight for me. Like because it's already giving me a background history. It's already telling me where my opportunities at. So I just got to capitalize on it and see what happens.
So the future is data is going to make us all smarter, more informed, more intelligent. Even our customers will be, and help us kind of grow our businesses, cut costs, save money, and do more business.
Yeah.
And you think about like the LLMs. You mentioned large language models, and what's gold to them is going into defunct companies that have like large news groups or a history of email archives, and they're buying those or Slack messages or what have you. Even going into Reddit, I mean, there's deals where they can go in and just read stuff. And so that's gold for them because they're training their large language models. By the very same token, I think data is gold for us, and we're going to continue to mine it and derive more value out of it. And I think it's an exponential increase to how much value. We don't even know. We could come up with an exponential number of use cases into the future by just letting AI do its thing and filtering it through. How should I be thinking about it? What should the next question I should be asking? But so the integrity of the data is important. Know that we have so many transactions and deliveries and incoming phone calls and guest interactions and bringing in Podium, and things at third-party layers, that it'll give the organization, the general manager of the stores, the person in operations, the person managing the home delivery fleet, or even the individual contributor, at the HFC level, more power and tools to them as we open up that data in a protected, secure manner for them to kind of think about their business or our business differently. So it really does kind of open up the playbook, so to speak.
It does.
And so I just got to go back to the beginning where we started. Broad River Retail would not be where we are today were it not for Lee Vang and helping our business become more intelligent, just installing these things in place that we needed to kind of put in place so that we could kind of fly the plane, fly it effectively, and really make key business decisions that we needed to make. So you took this ride or die mindset when we were at our worst, when we were knocking on death's door, and you kind of said, all right, we're going to ride or die, and we're going to figure this out.
You were right.
And it was sink or swim, and we swam, and we figured it out. And so just immense gratitude, and from not just me, but from all of us here, all of our memory makers. And it's really an impressive, like just behemoth of reports and things that kind of lean. I mean, we got so many different plugins and reports that plug into the system that you oversee and overtake and do it really well, And so I guess, what would you advise anyone else kind of starting up a BI department in their company? What are some pitfalls to kind of navigate through, to look for, or maybe what are the next 3 steps they should think about?
I think really at the core to the fundamentals, as someone who's starting with the BI department or building one or interested in building one, for me, the key thing is you got to have someone who's really driven in the data world. And I say that not so much about populating results, but understanding the infrastructure, how data should be connecting to one another. Because I think the one thing that I learned talking to other folks from other organizations that are big companies, and the story that I always hear was, we have 2 different ERP systems, or we have a series of them, but all the data is or all the reporting is meaningless. And it's like, why? Because we don't have a data specialist that can let them talk to each other. So we're just getting a lot of false positive on things. And so given, I think, I guess I would say that I'm fortunate that in the sense of I take the approach of my day one goal when I got here was I want everything to talk to one another and been able to keep that afloat, I think that part is the number one most crucial part in terms of starting a BI, is that you got to have somebody who's in here that wants to just make sure it's about getting data to talk to each other some way, somehow, and that everyone, the language is unified across the board.
Okay, I have to just riff on that for a second.
Okay.
About the importance of language and being able to communicate.
Yep.
So, and this is going to catch you off guard. I'm going to do it real quick.
Okay.
Have you seen the movie The Hail Mary Project, or Project Hail Mary?
I've heard about it. It's
with Ryan Gosling and this
Yeah.
alien. And so the first thing he does is he establishes a means for them to communicate.
Yeah.
And his laptop translates what the rock is saying to him. And they develop a beautiful friendship and relationship, all based off of the foundation of being able to communicate. So yes, you do have to have your datas and your systems be able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
Get a little Project Hail Mary shout out there for you, but it's important. Okay, any other advice or tidbits or things that I haven't asked you that you wanted to suggest or talk about?
No, I think that's pretty good. I was gonna say movie-wise, the one that I was really fond with AI. There's a movie called Mercy with Chris Pratt.
Mercy. Oh, I saw that one. Yeah.
And that one really was good, because I think I love the fact that it was almost like it could be in today's world.
Yeah.
Because I think we attended the CMPD luncheon, and they had kind of showed some of the stuff where I was like, whoa, like that's pretty interesting where we're at there. But then the system of having a AI judgment system and having all the data collecting and stuff like that, I think for me, I always thought there was a really good beauty behind that, because it was the idea was there is no human emotion, there is nothing. This is pure facts. And I think at the end of the day, that was the one thing that I felt like that movie was trying to echo was if you go things based off of facts, it doesn't necessarily lie. But in the case, what we fed it, because it did feed some garbage into the system, it brought back some garbage back out. So and that to me was a very good correlation of like garbage in, garbage out kind of ordeal in terms of how in that movie, what system they connected into that system there. So
I did see that movie earlier this year. Chris Pratt, who is the cop who implemented this program to expedite guilty pleas when they had a 90% or greater chance of being guilty by all the evidence. He then is accused of murdering his wife or ex-wife, and he had 90 minutes to
plead his case about.
Yeah, and to get it below 90%. Yeah. But he had access to this virtual AI bot who could go give all the data and video feeds.
Yeah.
And looked like it was dire, like he was completely like all the motive and all the evidence, and finally got enough evidence and data to get his innocence. That was a good movie.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good one.
All right. I didn't know we were going to do movie review. But we are.
But yeah, here we are.
Here we are. Well, Lee, thanks so much for what you do for us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for keeping our data safe. Thanks for having it communicate with all of our other data partners. Yep. And communication partners are so vitally important and critical in helping us understand the game that we're playing.
Yeah.
And that it's reliable and trusted. Yeah. And I mean, people's paychecks depend on it.
Yes.
Reports depend on it. The whole company runs on it.
Yeah.
And so it's that really good premium fuel that's going into the engine.
Yeah. No 87 here. No 91s. We're 93 here. 93.
93 high octane, pure fuel. Yeah. That's we're going to leave it right there with Lee Vang, Senior BI Developer here at the River. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday now with a fresh new episode with a couple of spotlights scattered throughout the week. And they're coming to you fresh from YouTube, Apple, Spotify, LinkedIn, my favorite professional network. Wherever you get your interest media, your social media, Stories from the River will be there. Thanks so much, Lee.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.